I often tell the students in my programs and the clients that I work with that really there are only two roots of physiological function that impact everything that's happening in our body and in our health. And it really comes down to number one, nutrition. Are we getting the nutrients into the body, into the cells to make energy and to do all of these processes that our body does to live? And then on the flip side of that coin, are we detoxing well, right? The detoxification is the other root of physiological function that we need to address if we really want to maintain optimal health and wellness. And yet, what if you're not detoxing well? Well, let's talk about that today. I'm Michelle. I am a functional nutrition practitioner, clinical herbalist, and a trauma-informed professional as well, who often starts with a nervous system regulation aspect as the foundation of the work that I do with clients. Because it can impact all of these other physiological functions that are happening in the body. When we're talking about these two roots of physiological function, I like to think about like a body of water. We know if a body of water is stagnant, right? There's no fresh water flowing in or the old water flowing out, right? That there can be this stagnation. Things can start growing in there, bacteria, mold. I don't know what all. I'm not an expert on water health. But what about our houses as well? This might be a little more practical example when we live in a home where we don't take out the trash and clean up, right? Our house starts to, I don't know, smell bad and maybe germs start growing and mold and some yucky things happen that we don't want to happen. Well, I want you to think of your body as the same type of system where, yes, we need to bring in the nutrients and the good things that our body needs to do the day-to-day process of metabolism just to live and to enjoy life. But if we don't move out the toxins and the waste, then the stagnation can occur and we can start to really feel sluggish. Those aches and pains can show up and some other symptoms that we'll talk about. So, obviously, detoxification is a really important aspect of staying healthy. And yet, I find it often gets overlooked. And so, I want to talk about how to know if you're a poor detoxer. Maybe you need to support those detoxification pathways a little more efficiently. What do you look for? And what can you do if you are potentially not detoxing well? And really, I think just about everyone needs to be thinking about supporting detoxification. When I think about traditional herbal medicine like TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, or Ayurveda, there were a lot of what we might call detox practices that were part of these herbal traditions and even lifestyle practices, not just herbs, but things like dry skin brushing and gua sha and oil therapies and Ayurveda that were all meant to help move the lymph and move things through the body, opening up those drainage pathways. So there was really this understanding that detoxification and moving out the sluggishness, that toxic ama, as it's called in Ayurveda, is really important aspect of staying healthy. And so really this can be something we can do on a day-to-day basis. I think a lot of people think about detoxification as like a diet or a program they're going to do for a week or maybe a month. And then they kind of go back to living their day-to-day life without really thinking about detoxing on an everyday basis. So I think it's important to really support this on a day-to-day basis. But some people are better at detoxing than others. And so how do you know if you're good at detoxing or not? Well, if you're not a good detoxer, you probably are seeing some symptoms of or detoxification showing up, right? Of toxin load. And that might look like, again, fatigue or sluggishness, maybe weight gain, especially weight gain around the middle. It can be a sign we're holding on to weight that might be due to poor liver function and not detoxing well. I also think about aches and pains or trouble sleeping. These are some of the really common things that I see with my clients who are not detoxing well, and we're able to really shift these patterns when we really put some focus on getting in there and getting out the cellular sluggishness and debris that's kind of gunking up the system, if you will. Right? If you notice like a lot of phlegm maybe in your throat when you wake up in the morning, right? That mucusy type of picture can often be a sign we're not detoxing as well. I also think of hormone imbalances as being related to poor detoxification. Often, when we're not detoxing well, we're not moving excess hormones like estrogen out of the body efficiently, and we start to recycle those hormones. We can then start to see symptoms of estrogen dominance, as an example of not detoxing well. So, supporting our detoxification pathways is really important. And so we're going to talk about that, but I want to mention a few reasons why you might not be a good detoxer. And number one, it may just be genetic. Like some people have specific genetic susceptibilities to not detoxing well, right? Certain genetic SNPs might make you more susceptible. And along with that, maybe you've just been exposed to a really high level of toxins. Some of my clients I work with are really surprised to find they end up doing testing and find they have parasites or heavy metals or chronic infections. And these things all create basically a toxic load that's putting this toxic burden on the body and really draining their energy. And so addressing that toxin load is really important if you have been exposed to toxins. Environmental toxins, right, can also be an example. The plastics and the chemicals in our food and in our health products, right, like body care products, for example. I wrote about this in my book, Energy Reset, and how toxins can really impact our energy and our hormones. And it really is amazing, actually, some of the products on the market that we maybe take for granted are good for our body and yet are full of toxins, things we put on our skin. So think about what you might be exposing yourself to in terms of your toxic load, because that can be a big reason why you're not detoxing well. You're just bringing a lot of toxins into the body and impacting your energy in that way. It could just be that, you need to support your drainage pathways. And I think a lot of people think about the liver when we think about detox, right? Liver is considered that organ of detoxification. And certainly, it is so important to support the liver, make sure the liver is doing its job well. There's a lot we could talk about there. But detoxification does not just come down to the liver, right? We know even at a cellular level that our cells are detoxing, right? Our cells need to get that metabolic waste out of the cell so we can move energy and nutrients into the cell and create more energy. And if process isn't happening efficiently, this process we call autophagy, then we're going to start to see those signs that we're not detoxing well, right? Again, sluggishness, aches and pains, brain fog, irritability, trouble sleeping, weight gain, hormonal issues. All of these things start showing up when we aren't detoxing well. And so when we're not detoxing well, we can also start to recycle toxins and hormones, and it creates a system of chronic inflammation that becomes really this vicious cycle. So how do we break this cycle? How do we support our detoxification pathways? Well, I've mentioned a couple of key things already that are important to think about. And I think that there's a little bit of misunderstanding about detoxification. Some people do things like juice fasts or water fasts, and I'm not a huge fan of that approach because we start breaking down muscle, which is never really a great idea. In fact, we need the reason we break down muscle is we need to take the amino acids, the protein that are what our muscles are made out of, in order to fuel our detoxification pathways. So protein is actually really important for detoxing. And so thinking of that, just bringing enough good nutrients into the body that support detoxification, and protein and antioxidants and nutrients, minerals are all really important here. So we need to potentially keep eating and not, doing prolonged fasting or water fasting or juice fasting, because over time that will actually start to break down our muscle, and we'll lose some muscle mass that we really want to keep as we age, which is really important. So think of that as one of the starting places of detoxing. And then I want to also consider two different types of detox, right? As I mentioned, the liver is considered that organ of detoxification. And a lot of the detoxification practices that are so popular today really kind of center around a liver detox, right? Supporting the liver pathways, and really important. But also remember, there's a deeper type of detox, which is a cellular or systemic detox, so that we're actually getting into the cell and moving those toxic waste, metabolic waste out of the cell at that cellular level, the deepest level of tissues, and being then able to get nutrients and energy and oxygen into the system and into the cell, so that we can continue to create energy and feel good. So when I think of liver detox and supporting the liver, because that is really important, I think it's also great to know that there are different phases of liver detox, right? And understanding that can be really valuable, because if you don't have these phases all working appropriately, then actually this is where toxins can start backing up, and people actually feel worse instead of better when they detox, right? They start to do some of these detox protocols, and all of a sudden they start having a detox reaction, which you might have heard called a Herxheimer reaction, right? You start having headaches and aches and pains and fatigue and maybe nausea. Different things can show up, because phase one of detox is happening at a quicker rate than phase two and maybe even phase three. And that's where we get into problems. So we don't want to start ramping up phase one unless phase two and phase three are also in place as well, right? Where we're kind of creating a bottleneck, if you will, in the liver in this detox process, if we don't support phase two and phase three. So let's actually start by talking about phase three, because this is really kind of the elimination of the toxins from the body. So if we're not having that daily bowel movement, if we're not sweating, we also excrete toxins through the kidneys, right? And through the urine, the lymph system, even the lungs, right, are actually an organ of detoxification. So breath can actually be really a valuable tool, and breath work for detoxing. Little side note there. We're not going to talk too much about that right now. But one of the biggest things you can do is just make sure you're going to the bathroom every day, right? You're having a healthy daily bowel movement, and maybe even supporting some of your other drainage pathways like sweating, of course, making sure your kidneys are open, you're going to the bathroom and urinating. All of these things are so important. And so when I think about that, sometimes we need to bring in things to open up those drainage pathways. And there are some herbs that are really good for this, like alteratives. Also, maybe some of our more laxative herbs like aloe, maybe even some of our herbs like senna or cascara sagrada. If we need them, they're more laxative herbs. I don't recommend relying on them on a day-to-day basis, but if there's a little need to kick up some detoxification and open those drainage pathways, sometimes those can be helpful. But make sure you're drinking plenty of water, you're eating plenty of fiber, right? That you're just opening up those pathways so we can get those toxins out of the body. And then we can start focusing on phase one and phase two. And I also don't want to forget that we should really be focusing on supporting lymphatic drainage as well. So some of our lymphagogues, right, our herbs that move lymph can be really valuable here. And I think about cleavers and red root and echinacea, right? Some of our really lovely herbs to help move the lymph. can be really valuable. So, what about phase one and phase two? This is where a lot of attention often goes when you hear about detox. But again, we don't start there. We want to be thinking of opening drainage pathways, supporting the lymph, and then we can start bringing in some of our herbs and foods that support detoxification. And I just want to mention a couple today to think about. Bitter herbs, we've talked about these before in terms of how they support mood, right? And how bitter herbs are often nervines, but help regulate the nervous system. So there we are back at the nervous system, which is one of my favorite places to start because when we are in a parasympathetic rest and digest aspect of our nervous system, that's what I like to refer to as the healing response, where we're turning on the pathways that allow the body to heal and to create the metabolic processes we need to be healthy. So any of your bitter herbs like dandelion root, artichoke leaf, oh my goodness, there are so many, right? We could talk about that really help with supporting bile flow, right? Which is also very important for detoxification. Milk thistle, I would conclude as well. It helps with supporting both phase one and phase two of detoxification. And it's really important for helping to support levels of glutathione in the liver. And this is often referred to as the master antioxidant of the body. And so when we support glutathione levels, we're really helping to protect the liver from the oxidative damage, from the inflammation that can be a result of a high toxin load. So milk thistle is obviously well known as a liver supportive herb, but there are others. I think of St. John's wort. I've done a few videos talking about St. John's wort and milk thistle and their affinity for the liver, as well as helping with releasing stored emotions and regulating our mood. And isn't it interesting, this connection between the liver and detoxification and the mind and regulating our mood and feeling good in our body? I would also want to mention before we wrap up cruciferous veggies, right? Of course, these provide sulfur and they're DIM precursors. DIM is a nutrient that really helps support liver function and helps with phase one liver metabolism, and especially for women who maybe have some hormone imbalance due to liver function being impaired. This can be really valuable. So any of your cruciferous veggies and any of your antioxidants, including herbs that have a high antioxidant load, turmeric, for example, right? We think about turmeric for its ability to um, create anti-inflammatory response in the body, but it's been found in research as well to slow down phase one and help with kicking up phase two. And that's often important so that we're balancing, right? Phase one and phase two. And phase one isn't happening too fast, where we often feel worse instead of better when we are kicking up phase one too quickly. So these are just a few of the herbs that I think of. There are so many others. We talked about some of our bitter herbs, alteratives, antioxidant rich herbs, green tea, sage, all of your aromatic herbs like oregano and thyme and rosemary would be wonderful for supporting detoxification. Many of these help support healthy methylation, which is one of our detox pathways where we can actually transform toxins and get them out of the body efficiently. So herbs can play a really, really valuable part in just helping to keep our detoxification pathways open. And so if you're noticing, right, any of these signs we've talked about, that fatigue, sluggishness, brain fog, aches and pains, hormone imbalance, headaches, right? So many of these symptoms are often related to the fact that we're not detoxing well. We need to support opening those drainage pathways. We need to help get the liver functioning and doing its job efficiently. And we need to support cellular detoxification. And that's where I find we can really get back to a place of feeling good in our body, where we have energy, our hormones are balanced, we have a good mood, we can sleep well, all of those wonderful things that we consider a part of having a health journey that is wonderful and feels good. So be thinking about supporting detoxification if you're struggling with any of those symptoms. And down below, you'll also find a link to watch a free masterclass I have available on herbs for mood and how to use herbs to support symptoms of anxiety and depression and brain fog and irritability. And we'll talk about as well how they work by supporting detoxification in that masterclass. So join me there, and I will see you next time.